Hi, I'm Sonny Sunquist, and I hope I can save some other Nord keyboard users a little stress when you need to clean the contacts on your keyboard. I had one key, low D, that was not sounding at all on any piano program. I searched quite a bit for help and found a decent video on YouTube by the Frank Olsen twins. I thought I had enough info from that video, and it definitely got me started and is worth watching, but it did not explain how the FATAR hammer action is addressed, and there are some major differences on how to proceed. It seems there are several varieties, and my video addresses a Nord HP76 with a build circa 2019 and the FATAR hammer action keyboard. This job was time consuming, and I'm not relishing the thought of ever tearing it down again, but I'll briefly explain the teardown process even if you're familiar with it. I already had this handy toolkit I think I got from Harbor Freight. It has the small torque style bits that make this job easier. There are tight clearances, but even with my big hands, I was able to get it done with a few scars. I spread a large bath towel on our kitchen counter to work on. Starting at the bottom, take out the screws that hold the keyboard action with a torque size 15. One short machine screw requires a torque size 20. Keep all the screws separate for later. No need to take out the screws that have these rubber support washers. Next, you flip the keyboard over and take the sideboards off with a torque size 20. About half the screws of mine came out with the little washer attached and half not, so be careful when putting it back together. Next, you'll take out the screws on the back of the red metal cover. No need to take off any of the ones in this black portion here. This is where it gets tight. Before you can take the red metal cover away, there is a ribbon connector that needs to be unplugged. The picture shows it already unplugged here because it was too difficult to get a good picture while the metal cover was still attached. It's a pretty tight reach, so don't expect the cover to give you plenty of clearance, but you can feel the side locks. This one is pictured and you can't see the one underneath here. But if you just press down on these locks, the ribbon connector will pop right out. It's a lot more difficult to push it back in when you're trying to get the cover back on, but there's a definite click when it's set, so you know it's done. Once the ribbon connector is out, the red metal cover can be removed. In this picture, of course, the cover is already removed. Next, you'll also need to unplug some other ribbon cables, and that's showing 3, 4, and 5 here. First, you'll have to take out 4 screws out of the light blue bar here that keeps them secure to the keyboard. The ones that are numbered 3 and 4, these wider ribbon connectors, will be removed closer to this circuit board here, and the one number 5 will be removed closer to the keyboard action. The ones that are labeled 4 and 5 have a bend that are built into it, so you can use a plastic tool to slide in here and pull it out. It's pretty easy to remove. It's a lot more difficult when you're putting it back together, at least for me, and it's easier to get it in crooked, so be careful when you're putting the keyboard, these ribbon connectors back together. The middle one that disconnects closer to the keyboard needs to be pulled out towards the keyboard, not up. I used a pair of needle nose pliers, and I could grab it there, and it pulled out relatively easy. Now the last disconnect to allow the keyboard action to be taken away from the base are these thin connectors here. They're woven in the side to keep them from getting pinched by anything else. The good part is the short connector can't reach the wrong connection here. So it doesn't matter what order you take the connectors apart, but when you put it back, you want to make sure that the short one goes to the one that it reaches to save you a little bit of time. Finally, the fat tire action can be lifted out to allow the individual keys to be removed. This was a question no one answered for the hammer action keyboard on any of the videos or forums I found. I spent way too much time researching it and fiddling with the keys at every angle. The answer was simple when I found it. First, you push forward from the back of the individual keys, and they pop away from the rods that hold them. Then you lift them up and out. When you're disconnecting some of the black keys, as you push those out, sometimes it would push the white key next to it out too, but just be careful. I was pretty afraid the first time I tried this, but as frustration came, so came increased force, and they finally came free. I turned the keys upside down in the order as I removed them. The white keys have a note, letter, and number stamp, but the black keys are just numbered 1 through 5. And it's easy to put a black key in the wrong place. All of them pretty well fit as you're putting them back in, but once again, you'll get used to that. You'll find quite a bit of special grease during this operation on different parts of the keys. So be careful where you brace to remove the keys. There are several places that the grease is used, and it's easy to get it all over your hands as you're trying this process. Then you'll see that there are several strips that hold the contacts here, the rubber style strips here. Here's a better picture of it here. Some of them are like maybe 4 or 5 contacts held, and some of them maybe 10. I only had one key not sounding, and it was obvious which contact had sucked in a bit of debris. Here's a close-up picture of the contacts. But realizing how much work the disassembly was, I decided to clean all the contacts. I used a cotton swab with a bit of isopropyl alcohol. I worked in sections and replaced the keys as I went along to avoid having all of the action exposed. Make sure when you put these rubber holders back in that they're flush with the circuit board to keep from sucking any more dirt in. I cut off a toothpick, and I would use it on the other side of this and push it into the holes with the toothpick, and then use my fingers to make sure they are very flush before I moved on. And as you can see, as I went through, I put the keys on before, and then it kept your hands from getting the grease that was left here and keeping all the contacts from being exposed at one time. So unfortunately, there was no way to test the non-sounding key without complete reassembly. And it's important to use the reverse order that I just showed you, especially when you're getting these ribbon connectors connected back in here. You don't want to put that blue bar back on too soon, or else it gives you even less room to work with there. So I was fairly confident, but breathed a sigh of relief when everything worked after reassembly, and definitely hope this helps someone.